Disclaimer, we'd like to note before the start of this interview that the opinions about to be expressed by the guest on tonight's Gettin Salty Experience podcast are that of the guest and do not directly or necessarily reflect the views of the host of the Gettin Salty Experience podcast.
You're listening to the Gettin Salty Experience podcast.
Hello, Del Boca Vista, Hank Mole in the house with no voice. Welcome back to the Gettin Salty Experience podcast. It's the only one that brings to you. Did you hear that one or no? Did you hear it?
Yeah, like mine?
No, mine.
No, did you got something going on?
What? How about this? No?
No.
Jesus.
No.
I'm going to go lose it again.
Oh, shit. Not good.
Not
No,
good.
we got the on today, bro.
Oh, yes, we have. That's a definite.
We got him on, bro. We got him. Nobody else is going to get him, Roof. Who gets these guests that we get? Ghetto Truck guys.
He's only 89.
Tell him what I said. Ruffy says I can't make it on until about 10 to 8. I go, don't worry about it. You know, I'll tell probably one of the greatest minds in the FDNY in the last 100 years. I'll tell him that you can't make it till 10 minutes before.
But then
the show. Don't worry about it.
Get on, guys.
Don't worry about it. It's all good.
He shamed me.
Good. Don't worry.
Right now,
He shamed me.
Eat your chicken palm. It's okay. The chief will understand. Don't worry about it. See, that was a good segue, but you fucked it up. You didn't.
No, listen, nothing's fucked up. You just don't have to. You just gotta not just let it work.
That worked perfect. I had the perfect segue there, but
Because it's not working. That's the problem.
Where's the
What do you
goat?
mean?
You got the goat?
I tried to play my goat. It's not working. I don't know why.
Yeah, it ain't working. That shit's gone. We gotta stop sharing.
Mine's not working.
Yeah, yours is not working either.
I don't know what you got in the middle of the screen there.
That was what I was trying to bring. That thing that you wanted me to do it was not working. So
What the hell are you guys doing?
So I got to play it myself.
you may have to. But
All right, you know what? I was going to segue into. I was going to segue
because
into roofies with this tonight, but Gonzo. Oh, I didn't see that till the last minute, so I'll play it for you here. This is a song dedicated for Louis.
You know what?
You dick.
Here we go. Spilled my drink all over the fucking table here.
Another song?
Yep, you ready?
Get louder.
You've got it going on. Chicken Parmesan. I would never do you harm.
Chicken
Unless
Parmesan.
heating you up and putting you in my belly. Happy
He knows
to
the words,
cause
it's
you
crazy.
harm. But Chicken Parmesan,
Parmesan.
you are just fulfilling what you are made to be. My dinner, oh, can't you see?
Chicken Parmesan.
When I get you.
Wait, is that you singing that? What is that?
Don't worry about where I get my stuff. Is the
Dude.
chief still back there or did he leave?
Oh, he's very serious right now. I thought maybe we
I'm
get
sure
a
he
chuckle out
is.
of him.
He's
He's
probably
very serious
figuring
right
out
now.
what the hell you're doing.
I'm playing this song, Chicken Parmesan.
You can't pick a better
Chicken
night
Parmesan.
to play Chicken Parmesan than when Chief Dunn is on, for God's sakes.
Well, at least I didn't get on
Oh.
until 10 minutes before the hour. I could have done that, and
I'm still here.
Yeah, good point. He's out in Iowa, by the way, guys. In case you don't recognize the curtains, now he's out in his double wide trailer out in Iowa. So, all right, let's play a couple commercials, guys, because we got to get the goat in here. I spilled my drink all over my desk, so if this goes on fire,
Disaster.
Let me play that. Here we go. We're listening to New Jersey Fire.
Established in 1930 and under the current ownership since 1987, the New Jersey Fire Equipment Company handles a complete line of fire department equipment and supplies. Headquartered in Greenbrook, the company operates full 3M Scott service facilities in Ridgefield Park and Toms River, staffed by 10 fully authorized Scott certified technicians with a fleet of 6 fully equipped service vans. All New Jersey fire technicians and sales representatives are active or retired firefighters, officers or chief officers, career and volunteer. They understand the business and the importance of their work. New Jersey Fire has represented Scott since Earl Scott entered the SCBA business at the end of World War II. Among other leading manufacturers represented by New Jersey Fire are Globe and Firedex Turnout Gear, Mercedes Hose, Task Force Tips and Akron Brass, Hygenol, Fire Hooks, Arctic Compressors, MSA Carnes Helmets, ChemGuard Foam, Alkalite and Duo Safety Ladders, BA Face Shield Protectors, Truckman's Choice Saws, Grove's Gear Racks and Washer Dryers, Supervac Fans, RPI, Streamlight, and many others. A New Jersey incorporated and based company, sales and service are limited to the state of New Jersey. Find us now at www.njfe.com. That's www.njfe.com.
I don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but what other podcast gets the guy, probably one of the greatest fire minds in the last century? We get him 3 times on the show, Ruff. How do we do it?
I don't know. We should ask that
Well,
guy
look.
that Mike subscribed to.
What?
Right, Lou? You know what I'm talking about? No? Never mind. We'll talk about it later.
He's still shell shocked from chicken parmesan.
Well,
If I have that thing in my head this whole night, you're going to
Chicken parmesan.
don't worry, Coobs. I got him. Somebody hit him up and said, "This is Kevin." With hair.
That's that Dick Procaccini. He said that to me this morning. He said that to me this morning. I pretended like I didn't see it.
All right.
You're such a
I
dick.
tried to get him back for you, Lou.
Thank you.
All right, good job. All right,
All
listen.
right. We got to
Could you
do.
do me a favor? Could you bring the guy in? Could you bring the goat in? The guy. He's also got a new book. The guy is 80-something years old, and he wrote another book, and it's amazing. I was fixated. I was entranced. Go ahead, Ruff, bring him in.
All right, coming to the stage,
Ready, Chief? Here we go.
Chief Vinny Dunn.
I got the note.
And he's still there.
How you doing?
What's up, Chief?
I'm ready. I got your questions. You sent me questions. I answered these questions. Took all day. I wrote them down. I got the names of the guys. So if we want to know who's responsible for these questions, we got them. So
I can go upstairs and watch TV. You could run the whole show. It would be fine tonight. It'd be great. He's back.
Notification.
God,
so you want me to start?
Hey, before that, we got to get patriotic, Chief. Hold on 1 second.
Here we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Greatest country in the history of the world, Ruff. Chief, first of all, welcome back. Oh,
Good to
there
be
goes
back.
Lou again. Lou could be in and out at any time. He's up there in Iowa. We don't know what's going to happen. But you know what? We don't need no stinking Lou tonight, Chief. We got you. You got the questions. You got the answers.
Okay.
Let's
Chief
start
Dunn is
out.
going to run the show tonight. We're just
So
going to watch.
Let's start. Okay.
Let's go. Up, he's
I
getting
got these
serious.
questions, so I asked, I thought this was a good idea. Instead of you guys asking me questions, I said, how about giving me the questions in advance? So, you can always make a better answer. If you got the question in advance, I can do some thinking about them. I did some heavy thinking about it. Some of these questions were great. So we're going to do that. I'll do these. I got about 13 here, and we'll run through them and see what happens. Okay, so the first question I got here is from John Costello, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. He said, I got 2 questions, one on tactics, one a philosophical question. Okay, so bullet points to analyze building deterioration leading to collapse. He wants me to say, give me some bullet points that as a chief I would use to determine if the building was going to collapse. And I said, you can't really predict if the building is going to collapse. You you do. There's 4 basic things that make you suspect the possibility of a collapse. Age of a building. If it's 100 years old, and hasn't been renovated, that's a pretty good thing to think about. The lightweight truss material. If you got buildings built with lightweight trusses with sheet metal surface fasteners that fall off instead of bolts, you got a potential collapse. So that would raise your awareness. If you got vacant buildings, we know the condition of the inside of vacant buildings. Floors are opening, floors are collapsing, walls collapse off the top. So, and then renovated buildings. So the age, the lightweight construction, the lightweight trusses, vacant and renovated buildings. Now, and of course, a leaning parapet. And if he wants more, the answer to his question, bullet points, it's on my Collapse of Burning Buildings book, page 265. I looked it up.
I love this guy. Shameless plug.
Here's some bullet points. Expanding or cracking walls, bricks falling out, walls separating at corners, leaning structures, runoff water, a lot of runoff water coming out, roof joist failures, bouncy floors, joists pulling away from bearing walls. One night we got a call, and it was a brownstone, and they dug a hole, big hole. They were going to put a new building next to it, and they called the fire department. Somebody must have thought the building was going to collapse. No, we walked in. It was a brownstone, good maintained building. So I go over to the side of the exposure 2 side where the bearing wall is. I look at I pulled up the carpet, and you could see the wood floor. There was like a white, unvarnished section next to this bearing wall. So I'm saying this bearing wall is
pulling out
into that. It was obvious they had a big hole to put the foundation for the adjoining building there. So anyway, I said, look, we got to evacuate everyone out of the building. People were coming out. I'm going to go back in and get out of the building. So it was a tough decision, but that joist pulling away from a bearing wall, I got a call the next day from the building department, and they said, I never got in my entire career. He said, you made a pretty good call there, because they were amazed to see that section there too. And that was just something. So they wanted the bullet points, not finished yet. Vibrating floors, steel columns sagging, twisted out of warp, prior interior collapse. If you got parts of the building, come on, get them out of here. Cracks in plaster. That was Jennings Street. After the collapse, and God, they saved everybody, but they had a big conference, and they did say the guys saw the walls, the plaster, which was unusual, starting to collapse. So something was shifting in the building. So cracking plaster walls, the Jennings Street, cracking sounds, trusses, and a large body of fire. The most, and if you, the most common reason to get the firefighters out of there is you got a large body of fire, 2 or 3 floors, and you're not putting it out. You got to get them out there and use outside master stream. So John Costello, page 265, Collapse of Burning Building. There's all the bullet points. I couldn't. All right. Now he said, second question. He had 2 questions: tactics and philosophical. That sounds pretty impressive. It was the value of maintaining a journal or diary. Well, let me tell you something. For the first 20 years in a job, I didn't do anything. You go to a fire, you come back and say, gosh, sorry, I'm glad that thing is over. I lucked out. But the second 20 years, of course, when I made deputy, I had the time. I started thinking about what we did at fires. And then I started keeping, journals. And, one of the things, when I was a new deputy in 77, John O'Hagan, the chief of the department, he wanted, Bronx was burning, Harlem was burning, Lower East Side was burning, Brooklyn was burning. And they said, look, every second alarm, we want you deputies to write a post-fire analysis. And nobody liked it because you had to evaluate the battalion chiefs. You had to draw a diagram of where the fire was, where you stretched the hose lines, where you put your ladders. It was pretty interesting. And I got into it. Most guys, get heck with that. They started getting forms up to ease the paperwork. I really got into making. I would go back to the scene. Never went back to the scene of a fire until I had to do these post-fire analysis. And then I'd see things that every fire as a part of it collapsed in there. So that was the learning point. That's why, fire marshals know so much more about this job than fire officers and fire chiefs, because they go back to these fires and they analyze these fires, which we don't do. And I started doing it. I learned everything. And then the writing started after that, my journal. So I keep saying to young firefighters, think about what you do. Most of us don't think about what we do. I mean, sometimes it's too bad to think about, but you got to think about, why did that fire occur? Why did that fire spread? Why did that building collapse? Why did that person die? So think about what you do. So my critiques and outlines that were required, that are no longer required, unfortunately, the guys got rid of them. But that was a great thing for me. And I started taking pictures. And I remember I was taking a picture in a church file, which is very rare. And a police officer came up to me, saw me taking the pictures. He knew I was in uniform. But he said, Chief, I should have done that. I was up in the Bronx for 20 years, all kinds of shootings and everything. If I had a little, I would have taken all these pictures. I would have had a book of. And so he reinforced what I was doing there. So, like you hear the guy say, fight him and forget him. No, I say, fight him and write him.
Fight him and write him.
Fight him and write him. Don't fight him and forget him. Fight him and write him. So there's the answers to John Costello's questions on the Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
You know what,
Okay.
Chief? When I first got on the job, I had a journal, and I would write down. Well, first I wrote down, when the captain asked me to check the rig, I would write down everything he wanted me to check, so that way I wouldn't forget anything. Then I started writing down, my first run, what happened, my experiences. For about 3 months, I was writing it. And for some reason, the guys thought I was writing notes about them, or it was going to be a rat about. I come in, and my journal is on the barbecue, and the journal up on the barbecue. So my one piece of advice is, lock your journal up and show the guys that you're not ratting them out, because I wanted to do it for 20 years,
Yeah, you would.
They think you're writing about them, like you're ratting them out or something.
No. We're a funny job. It's a funny job, I have to say. But you can do it when you're off duty. I mean, you don't have to do it on duty. And
there's another thing you should do. Do it off duty, because the guys are going to get suspicious and think you're up to something.
And then, of course, but today I think everybody knows about a journal and the photographs. God, the way the city was in the 70s, I got thousands of pictures of half demolished, renovated buildings falling apart. But those photographs, were the basis for with my books and everything. So we need, so that was it. So that's
John Costello. Good job, John Costello.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. Now I got another one from Artie Workley.
Oh, we know Artie Workley.
You know Artie? Okay, good. Yeah. Where does he work? Where does he come from? Do you find him?
He used to be up here in New York, right? Now he's down in Florida.
Okay. Now he says, what's the opinion of being a DC or a BC at a fire? So what is the difference between being a battalion chief or a deputy chief? That's one of his questions. Now, a battalion chief, you got 4 engines and 2 trucks, or 3 and 2, or whatever. You got 2 and 1, and you got to put that fire out. So you're an aggressive, battalion chiefs are aggressive interior firefighters. That's all they know. They got these guys responding. They get in there, and the firemen are doing their aggressive attack. So they're there, and they have an aggressive philosophy. But every once in a while, it doesn't work. Very rarely. Most of the time it does work. But I would see guys 2 years. I'm a chief for 2 years. It's never happened to me. They didn't put the fire out. So then they called the second alarm. I would go. I said, okay, fine. Get the guys out. I'm going to set up tower stream. So a deputy chief is a defensive type of chief. Our philosophy becomes more defensive because we already got an aggressive chief there. And, so we got to learn how to set up the big master streams and not working in opposition. We don't want to injure anybody. But that's what the deputies are more defensive. So right away, battalion chief, aggressive, offensive chiefs, deputies, defensive, setting up outside streams. So that's the two big differences. All right, so the DC. Okay, so now like setting up master streams, very difficult to do. But I learned after a while to be proactive. One day I get this fire with a very highly regarded battalion chief inside, and I really admire. We were in officer school together, and this guy was up in the Bronx longer than I was. So, but he's in there a long time. Smoke is coming out of this big giant wood building. So I'm saying, no, wait a minute, this doesn't look good, and I don't want to bother this chief here. Division 7, the Battalion 5-6, how you doing? So he's okay. We're still searching for the fire. Okay, so now I say, get that 58 truck, get that towel ladder in front of the building here. 45 in, you get a line in, and I don't say anything to this guy. I'm going to give him his leeway, but I'm saying if fire breaks out through that roof, I don't want to then be running around, scrambling to get a towel. So then I said, don't charge the line, but get me a line into that tower ladder. And so we waited. And then, of course, in the veteran battalion chief said, we got it, chief. We got everything good. All right, fine. But you got to be proactive setting those things up because, it takes too much time otherwise. But so that was it. So I became a more defensive. When I was in the 25th Battalion, I knew how to be an aggressive battalion chief. But when I became in the 7th Division and in the 3rd Division, deputy chief is a defensive. And I always remembered when we were kids studying, in the book of regulations, it probably is still there, I don't know. But they say if you got a report of a bomb, you send one injured and the deputy. And I'm saying, why do they send in the deputy? Why don't they send the battalion chief? And because the deputy chief is a more defensive, and I figured that out. They know more. They're more likely to back out than a battalion chief is. It's just the nature of our business here. Okay, so that was it.
Send the commissioner.
Yeah. So what rank was the most challenging at a good job? He wants to know. Artie Workle wants to know what rank, was the most challenging, BC or DC. He limits it to. So truthfully, the BC, the battalion chief, is the most challenging. You're there at the initial shock wave. You're making all the big decisions. You're positioning the hose lines. You're setting the table up. That is really the most challenging of the two chiefs' jobs. The deputy chief's job is nice. We have plenty of warning when we get there. We're listening to the fire on the radio. We got a good idea. Battalion chief has no idea what he's rolling into. So the most challenging chief's job is the battalion chief's job. But the point here is, you need both a deputy and a battalion. You really need two battalion chiefs too. And I think we now have two battalion chiefs responding when you have a working fire. And you need two chiefs. You say, well, why do you need two chiefs at a fire? Or why do you need a deputy and a battalion chief at a fire? Because, we all talk about, I think that other question talked about size up. Now, the most effective size up is from the inside. When I would go to a fire, I'd say battalion 2-5 to a lot of 2-6, what do you got? He says, we got a couch fire. That's it. I would go, 1-on-1 is all we need. I would go with that inside size up. That was, so that's it. 99% of the time, the inside size. But now, once in a while, the outside size becomes more important. When the fire gets to be 2 floors or a floor and a roof of a truss building, the guy inside he is subject to tunnel vision. Like one day, Pete Valenzano, he's in the 56th Battalion. He says to me, I roll up to a vacant building fire, and there's fire about 3 or 4 floors. All the windows are gone. The roof man from 56 trucks said, get those guys out of there, chief. So now 5'6" to 42, back the line out. And the firefighter said, the officer said, we got one more room, chief. We got one more room. We'll have this fire knocked down. He says, you got 3 floors of fire above you. So you need to size up from inside and outside. That's all, Mike. So Artie Workle, that was a good question there.
Hey, Chief, let me ask you a quick question. What was your favorite? What was your favorite rank?
Well, that's one of the questions there. Now, now let me tell you, all my life, I don't know why, I was a fireman one day. I'm in 59 Engine. And, the 16th Battalion would come into quarters, harassed, you take a mark, dirty, and then he'd leave. And then one night, we got to go, Chief headquarters. We rolled downstairs. And this guy, I think his name was Griffin. I never forgot this guy. He's full dress uniform, gold, well trimmed man. And he lines us up. Now, unlike the battalion chief, who just wanted to get in and get out, thinking, this guy, we're going to have a roll call. So we line up, and this guy, starts to ask us questions. And I said, look at this man with the gold. He had this full uniform on. First, chief in uniform I saw. So I said, I think I want to be a deputy. And that was always my life goal. So my answer to your question is, I enjoyed being a deputy. I enjoyed learning the job as a battalion chief. You be a battalion chief to be a deputy. And I had that first aggressive attack, but then when I became a deputy chief, then I really liked that job. And it was, the other thing is when I became a deputy, I went to the Bronx. I was always in Harlem. I'm in Lower Manhattan. We had tenements, loft buildings, brownstones. I went to the Bronx. They had H-type buildings, which is 2 tenements. Private dwellings, fires. I never went to a private dwelling fire until I went to the Bronx. Road dwelling, taxpayer fires. The Bronx is full of taxpayer fires. So country fires, everything. So there's no zoning in the Bronx. So you learn everything. And Brooklyn is the same way.
Yeah,
I believe Brooklyn is the same way.
Never heard of that borough.
Manhattan, it's high-rise, low buildings, tenement, which is nice. I'm an expert at those things. But so I would have to say,
all right. Let me my next question, Chief. Did you become that guy who came dressed in? Did you have everything squared away?
Funny, I did. And I used to say, I get embarrassed sometimes. I say, look, this is not for me. It's from the rank. I'm doing this for the rank of the deputy chief. And I always had a roll call. And I would ask the pump operator, how's the pumps? Sometimes you're not working properly. And then you'd ask them questions. And if they had a fire. But I always tried to do that. I always, tried to keep the shirt and the uniform
nice
appearance. So that was, that was part of it. So I did. So how we see things, and we emulate them. In the fire.
Yeah.
Like they say, we had a question in fire tech or Delahanty's at the time. Does the job make the man, or the man make the job? And we all got it wrong. We all said the man makes the job. And I said, no. The job makes the man. And we become, what the job makes us. You look at your boss, you're going to be like your boss.
Yeah.
You're going to see, we become, you say, no, I'm going to change it. No, you become it. And hopefully I got a good example of a boss as a deputy anyway. I mean, the battalion chief, I would like the 16th Battalion Reagan, signing the book and getting out. But as a deputy, I did the roll call bit, So that was it. So the DC has post-fire report. Going back, I thought about what I did. Artie, they were great questions. Okay, now. Brian Mariano, firefighter,
Rivera?
and medic he is.
Oh.
Now, he said, he put me under pressure already. He said, hoping for something that hasn't been said yet. He wants me to come. Something hasn't been said yet. And I don't know if I can do that. Okay. So Brian Moreno says, advice for firefighters going into the fire department. A new kid, I think, advice for a firefighter going into the fire department. Moments before you walk into the fire academy, before you go to the fire academy, the moment you go into the firehouse, you know, you got to do what you're told, but you got to find a mentor. You got to look around. You got to say, who looks like they know what they're doing here? And, you know, there's a lot of guys, and you have to find that guy. And when you find him, if you look, you know, if you go to, and you find that out of the fire, you know, you can, some guys are great in the firehouse and not so great at a fire. When you watch these guys at a fire, oh, that guy is good. So now you follow him around, you ask him questions, and you let him be your menu. But and now, when I went into the fire, I said, I knew nothing. We didn't even go to the academy. You know, there were so many of us promoted. They sent 300 of us to the firehouses, and then after 3 months, we went to training to learn how to be a probie. So I walked into the firehouse. I didn't know nothing. 20 minutes later, I'm on the back step. I'm saying, what the hell am I supposed to do here? You know, and I watch the guys. So you watch them, you know, and if they're raising a ladder, you raise a ladder, you help them stretch a hose. But I had no clue as to what to do. But and then the kitchen was not conducive. It was a tough drinking firehouse, you know. And so the kitchen was not conducive to asking questions, you know, shut up, I'll get another cigarette. So what I would do, I would say a young firefighter, hang out at the house watch desk. You got a captive audience out there. As the guys take over the watch, I used to sit out with the house watch guy, and I would ask them questions. You know, I would ask them, and they could give you that are alone. So they're going to give you good answers. You know, in the kitchen, the guy, you don't listen to him, don't listen to him. So at the house watch, I would tell a young kid, get these guys when they're on watch, and now you got a captive audience. So that's
pretty good.
So you gotta be listening, and when you first come on the job, and identify your mentor. Okay, so that's advice for new. And the other thing is, till your final day. He said, the day you enter. Till your final day. Well, let me tell you about your final day. You know, when I was a probie, I said, you know, when I become first grade, 3 years at the time, I'll know what I'm doing. I'll be a vet. When I gave him 3 years, Jesus, I don't know anything. That guy's when I get 10 in, I'll know everything. And then when I had 10 in, I said, Jesus, I still don't know everything. I said, that guy has 20 in. Now he knows. So now, what happened after I got 20 in? What happened? I started looking at the company offices. I said, I'm out of it. I don't know what's going on. And the captains, I started now looking at the captains for experience. I said, that guy's got experience. I'm out. I'm over. So you never feel that you have enough experience. You know, people think, oh, Chief Dunn, got all that stuff. Yeah. When I left, it was, you know, I never felt that way. And I want to tell you something. The day you feel that you got enough experience, you better get out of the job.
Hell yeah.
You're going to get somebody killed. You'll never, in this job, it's unpredictable. So you'll never feel, so I tell the guys, don't worry about it. You'll never feel confident.
Comfortable. I mean, you're never going to feel super comfortable.
You're never going to feel, guys, not a comfortable dude. Good job. Okay, so
good job, Lou. Good job.
So that was it. So, and this firehouse training, and I would tell a new kid, you know, firehouse has the life or death training. They tell you how to survive firefighting. You know, you watch the guys. You got to learn how to put the mask on. You got to learn how to stretch the hose, crawl down the hallway, and that's the real life or death stuff. But that's the I call it the micro world. Now, by some reason, I got this fireman that came in after me, and I thought he was gonna be my probie, you know, push around. He had pipe college, you know, he was going to school. He says, Vin, you're GI Bill? I said, yeah, I was in the Navy. Come on, we'll go to college. I started to go to college, and they had this course back in 1959, fire administration. And you had chiefs teaching. Captains from 25 truck, he was in 30 truck. Lou Harris was teaching. The chief of fire prevention. I had big officers who were top rising stars. They were not the bosses. They were rising. I'm a kid. I'm going to get, instead of my side job, painting or mowing grass, I'm getting paid by the government, by the GI Bill. So now I'm listening to these chiefs. So now they're talking about high-rise firefighting, ship fires, plane fires, you know, everything. And I've got tenements in my district. So I got a macro. There's a macro. The chiefs, they have a different world. So I'm a kid sitting there listening to this holy macro. And of course, the two worlds are critical. You survive with the micro training, but you get the big picture with the macro training. So today you got the fire. We didn't have John Jay. Didn't exist back in the 50s and 60s. You didn't have the veterans from Vietnam started the GI Bill really and John Jay. I was in the 60s, early and 50s and 60s. So I was very unusual to get into this fire science administration course. So I got the macro world. And then later on, 20 years later, I got asked to go teach at the Fire Academy, the National Fire Academy. Now, I know New York, I'm a 20-year veteran chief. I go out to the Emmitsburg, Maryland, and now I see these guys from the West Coast. These guys all look like the man on the 6 o'clock news, the tan, they speak well, and there's guys from New York and Chicago, but we were like outliers. But then I saw a bigger picture, a national picture from Florida, from the Midwest, from LA, and the LA guys controlled the Fire Academy when I went there. The only guy from the East Coast was Jim Smith from Philly and me, and I didn't teach out there long. But the Fire Academy was another. That was what I would tell a kid until the day you retire. Make sure you take a trip out there. So you want to get the micro training from the firehouse, the macro training from John Jay, or whatever big community college you got, and the Fire Academy training of the nation out there with Emmitsburg, Maryland. So that's what I would tell Brian, Mariano, and I hope that's something you haven't heard before. Right? Okay. Now we got Ryan Delia, LLEA, Ryan. Okay, Ryan, what's the biggest change I have seen since 1957? Well, I've seen, you not changes for you guys, but for me, the biggest changes were tower ladders, using vacant buildings. We would stretch 10 lines into a vacant building to put it out. Tower ladder, now they pull us out. Tower ladders save lives when the vacant building period started in New York City. Radios, we didn't have radios. We used hand signals, right? And then we were trained on hand signals.
Pump down. Too much pressure, pump it up.
Yeah. So hand signals, power tools. We had I remember listening to Mickey May on a TV Sunday morning program, and he's talking about the axe. Say the axe, that's a prehistoric tool. In the 50s, we had no power tools. We had an axe and a Halligan tool, crowbars. We were so the power tools, the radios, and the tower ladders were major, and we didn't have to do hand signals anymore with the radio. And the prehistoric axe was, put away. Put it on a plaque for you when you got retired.
Chief, give us a hand signal what it's like to stretch ball line. Give us something.
That was it. It's probably still in the evolution. Man.
It's more like
the evolution, Chief.
Okay, computers. Now I didn't know computers, so I'm retiring. But no, I'm not retiring, but I was 60 years old. And I used to say, I don't do a computer. I use the yellow pad. And then these guys, my captains, all were into the computer. I'm talking about in the 80s and early 90s. Computers were coming into fire. They didn't issue any. Guys were bringing their own in, doing it. And then finally the job wises up. I must be 60 years old. I'm getting ready to go out. So I go over to a computer training course. Some guy shows up in my office. I'm typing using whiteout, on my report. And the guy says, "Hi, Chief." I forget his name. He says, "We want you to come to the computer school, a 1 week in training, learn about Windows or whatever the heck it was." So I go out there, the big old veteran chief who uses the yellow pen, and I see all these guys on a computer, and I didn't know anything. So now I faked it for the week. Then I call up training. And I said, I would like to come back another week on my own time and really, learn this computer. And I did. And I think I wrote, my last book, the Command and Control book, on a computer. So my point here is, you can teach an old dog new tricks. I figured he's 60, he'll never learn that. But now I'm a computer whiz. Here we are doing Zoom. Never thought I'd do that. But so so these are things. They were changes. The kitchen does not change. The kitchen does not change. Now headquarters changes. New program management by objectives. And when it comes down to the deputy waters it down. The battalion chief waters it down. The officer waters it down. You go into the kitchen is the same it was 70 years ago, 100 years ago. Like if you're writing stuff, they get suspicious. They throw your journal in the barbecue. The kitchen is the kitchen. So that's really where the rubber meets the road, and that never changes. So it's where it's true.
Stands the test of time.
Yeah. So good. There's no. I used to tell these guys, look, we all run interference. You don't know what's going on in this job. They're talking about the big programs in headquarters. It never gets into the kitchen. The guys in the kitchen, they want to respond to fires and do that, but the kitchen doesn't change. I would thought, and fire. So the big thing, fire science and National Fire Academy, that changed in my time. And I would advise anybody, because you go to John Jay, you're going to see all the rising stars. They're teaching. The captains and battalion chiefs, they teach there. So now you want to talk to them like. So that was all. What are we overlooking? This is Ryan Dulia says, what are we overlooking? We're overlooking. Sometimes we overlook the forest for the trees. We can't see the forest for the trees. Now let me tell you this story. I guess 78. I had to be a deputy. We have the war bombs collapse. Now, the big word out in this building construction book by Frank Brannigan, who was a buff. He was an accountant major but he was the biggest thing in the fire service. Everybody loved. He's one of the godfathers, Frank Brannigan. But when you looked at him, he did a week fire training in the Navy. He was a buff thrown out of firehouses in Midtown. But anyway, we go to training after the collapse to find out about collapse. And here's this guy, Frank Brannigan. The city is paying him to give us a lecture. Now I'm sitting there and I'm watching a battalion chief that I idolized getting ready to click his slides. And I'm a deputy now. And so then, just before the lecture, he got this book, Building Construction for the Fire Service. Just before the lecture, all of the staff chiefs come in the side door and they sit down there. Now, I was furious. I says, why are we listening to this guy, an accountant up there? All the chiefs that I admired couldn't see what this guy saw. He stood at the command post, buffed the command post, saw these buildings, wrote the book about buildings. What the hell were our chiefs doing? Worrying about discipline, worrying about management by objectives, I was so angry that this interloper was telling New York City Fire Department. I mean, he was a big man. I'm not denying that. But he was not those big chiefs, gold, assistant chiefs. What were they seeing when they were at fire? This guy would stand by them and see things. And they I guess they had other things. But that infuriated me. And I said, that will never happen as long as I'm a chief. And I'm going to, then I became lecturing and writing a book. I copied Brannigan's book, to write my own book. But
Allegedly.
There was two things about Frank Brannigan. Tom Brennan used to say, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And then, so that was it. He took over the fire service. He graduated from Manhattan College and an accountant. He knew everything about building construction. Can't deny that. But how come my chiefs did not know that? Where were my bosses who were responsible to know that? So that's all. So what are we overlooking? Sometimes we don't see the forest for the trees. So watch out when the buffs are standing behind you. What do you see that I don't see? And, okay, and then there's a big opportunity. There's big opportunity in the fire service, and I know, we all want to be firemen, and I wanted to be a fireman and an officer, but you can't deny the opportunity we have in this fire service. First of all, there's no job you can go to and read a book. Your cop can't read a book on a beat. When you do your 3x6 watch, you can read a book, you can study for promotion, and I started going to school on GI Bill instead of painting and doing grass cutting. And I said to myself, I could get a PhD, by reading on a house watch here. And I know guys who did. They were firefighter philosophers and kitchen philosophers who got PhDs. And they studied in the firehouse up on the top floor. So there's so that's what I'm answering. What are we overlooking? So to Ryan's question, we're overlooking the opportunity. And one thing I noticed, I remember seeing a survey, and they said, if you want to be the chief of department, the path to the chief of department is through training. You got to be the training chief to be the chief. It's the way most chiefs were training chiefs. So I didn't want to be the chief of department, so I never was a training chief. But okay, now you had the 3 questions. When you're new hired, what's the biggest changes? What were we overlooking? And what's the biggest hazard? Now, currently, he's pinned me down there. The biggest hazard for firefighters is these gas explosions. As we go from coal and oil to this greening energy, air and wind, and we're using natural gas. Natural gas is a cleaner intermediate between the change from coal and oil to whatever, the wind and all that stuff. But more gas is being used, and you can see these gas explosions that are happening. So that's the biggest hazard for firefighters. Now, the biggest hazard for people are those lithium battery bikes. That's crazy. So you can't charge that and leave that bike. When the thing is on a red, you got to maintain that some kind of supervision while you're charging that bike. But now lithium, we were told in school, lithium, potassium, magnesium, you can't put these fires out. There's something in them. You had to cover them with some type of powder, but water doesn't work on them. But now they're talking about blankets and everything. But then that's a problem that nobody has solved yet. These lithium battery fires. Okay, and so and the other thing, the biggest hazard. Kevin, we were just talking about life or death decisions. Life or death decisions.
Bring it up. There's a new book. Get it up there, Gonzo.
A new book.
Wait a minute. You're not going to flash it that quick. Gonzo, bring it up. Here's the Chief's
This
new
is what
book.
I have. This is right here.
Okay, good. Thank you, guys.
So you don't have to hold it up.
Battle-Space Life or Death Decisions by Vincent Dunn.
So the life or death decision is let me see. I just want to do it. Okay. Life or death decision is when we crawl across a doorway. I mean, see, guys come up to me. I've had some chiefs come up to me and say, "What are you trying to do? Scare these guys?" I said, "No, you can't scare firemen. Firemen love danger. They're risk takers, and so you're never a firefighter. And I'm not trying to scare them, but I want to make them aware of the danger. Because I wasn't aware. Like this guy from the FBI tells me about life or death decisions that philosophers and theologians and medical people debate. And the military and the fire, we don't know anything about acceptable, unacceptable life laws or life or death decision making. And they've been studying it for centuries. But okay, so now the FBI guy, Bob Mahoney, he's triggered me onto writing that book. But so my point here, to Ryan's answer, what's the biggest hazard? We work in a deadly, uncontrolled environment. We don't realize it. We don't realize that. But when you cross into a doorway with smoke-filled room, you're entering a deadly, uncontrolled environment that can collapse, explode, flash over, disorient you and trap you. That's a deadly uncontrolled environment we work in. That's our workplace. A deadly. Now you say, well, construction work is a danger, and mining is dangerous. Well, let me tell you about mining. Before a union lets a miner go down to the pit, he's got to have air pumped in there. He's got to have shoring in the pit. He's got to have lights down there. When we crawl across a doorway into a smoke-filled room, we have no lights. We have no air pumped in. With toxic gas, the thing can come down. The ceiling can come down. So our environment is a deadly, uncontrolled environment. The miners are dangerous, controlled environment. Heavy construction, dangerous, controlled environment. There's all kinds of regulations. And many times when they die, they don't follow their regulations.
Right,
but there's no regulations in a burning room that we can follow. So that's all. We have the most dangerous of the professions. Okay, Ryan, they were great questions. Now we got Brendan Dunn. I think I know this guy. He's from Utica. He called me up, and I did a lecture for Brendan Dunn up there. He's pretty good, and I think I know him. So he's from Utica, New York. He's a retired deputy, and he says, "How do you feel about the modern experts who preach truss construction is safe to work on?" So he said there are people saying truss construction is safe to work on. I don't know who they are, but truthfully, the truss is not the problem. The truss, we would not have trains going across ravines to the West Coast if we didn't have trestles built. Truss long span roof system. We wouldn't have
Walmart
garages. So, but that's not the point. The truss is not the point. The truss is how they're connected. Now, our new lightweight truss has a sheet metal surface fastening. The thing only is stamped in there about 1/4 of an inch. It puts all these systems of pieces of wood together, stamps in this little piece, penetrates the wood 1/4 of an inch, and that's put together. I've been called out to Staten Island. Guy says, "Chief, look at this. The trusses have fallen. The sheet metal surface fell off the trusses. They were charred. The deck was white. The roof deck didn't. The supports, truss supports, had failed before the roof deck. Generally the roof deck failed first. Your leg goes through between the beams. The beams are still there. But here we got the trusses gone. Sheet metal fasteners missing, and the truss is broken, and the deck's still there. So now I got a call from Christian Delicio. He's sending me all this stuff. You probably got a message from him too. He's sending me pictures of a truss he cut down. Now this truss had bolts through it. Now that's a good truss. If they got those trusses and put bolts or nails, but not sheet metal surface fasteners. Like I'm giving a lecture one day, and speaking to Frank Brannigan. So I said to the guys, we have what they call a performance code. We used to have a specification code, which used to specify 10-penny nails, a brick a certain size, specify everything. And the engineer said, no, that's too specific. We want a performance code, they called it. And you just tell them what your hourly rating is. We'll decide what we build for a roof or a beam or a floor. So we got this in the 60s. I was down headquarters, and we got this performance code change. 68 code was a performance code. So now we got the sheet metal surface fastener. You can do anything you want. So one day I'm lecturing about the performance code, and I say, I heard there's a rumor that instead of the sheet metal surface fastener, they're going to have Velcro to put these pieces together, pieces of Velcro to staple them. So I really laughed. So I said this at a lecture. I got a call from that guy Brannigan, the guy who knew everything in that book. He said, "Vin, is it true they're using Velcro on trusses?" Right. I was only kidding. But the point here is the performance code will allow them to use Velcro. If it passes the 1 hour test or whatever test it, and that piece of Velcro allows that truss to stay together, it would pass. Thank God. Not yet. We haven't gotten the Velcro. But these sheet metals, you see them, they're ridiculous.
That's horrible.
The other thing you don't have is you don't have a ridge raft in these lightweight trusses. Why they're a collapse danger. You usually have a ridge raft where the beams on both sides are nailed into. And, if one side was burning and collapsing, a guy could go to the other side and the ridge rafter would keep that side of the peak roof up. But now without the ridge rafter, when one side goes, the both sides go. And, so the two big things that are killing the truss, I got no problem with the truss. My problem is with the sheet metal surface fastener and the fact that they took the ridge rafter out of the peak roof. So they're lightweight trussing and taking everything they can out to be cost effective. Okay, so that's Brendan Dunn's. I feel I answered his question. What about the modern expert who preach it's safe to work on a timber truss? And a timber truss, and we know about that in wall bombs, and we know that about in Hackensack, and we know that about in Jersey, Ridgefield, New Jersey. Those guys died there. And the timber truss, what happens with the timber truss? Like, there's no warning. It goes down. It can go down suddenly. But the point there is, it's 4,000 square feet. Those guys on the roof, the trusses are 20 feet on center. And there's beams between the trusses. So when that one truss 5 failed,
got 40 feet.
Started going down. 4,000 square feet of that roof started sagging and melting. The guys, what the hell's going on? It's not a little collapse on the corner of the floor there. The whole roof was. They tried to climb out, and the tar was hot, and they slipped back down. 6 of them fell to the roof. Thank God, 6 were killed on top of the roof. So, but the trusses, they are not there. They got to be a warning sign. Like somebody asked, what are the bullet points for pulling guys out? It's truss. One night after the wall bombs collapsed, I got a job up in Bathgate Avenue, I think, in the 7th Division. I'm getting this all hands. Second alarm goes in, so I get out of the car. And hear the guy say, "Hey, Chief, Cap, this is a truss roof. We got a truss roof here." So I didn't see the building. I'm getting out of the car. I said, everybody get out of the building, get off the roof. Division 7, everybody out of the building, off the roof. Now, when I go there, it's a lightweight type 2 non-combustible building. And it was a content fire. And they had knocked most of the fire down. And, I didn't know what kind of truss it was. I'm thinking bowstring truss, which Bronx has plenty of. So I said, okay, we'll go in. And they were burning cylinders. We had to pull out burning something cylinders. And it was some kind of a community center. But the point was, that triggers a pullout. If somebody says to me, you got a truss in this, Chief Bill, I don't want to be the next chief who has guys die from a lightweight truss collapse. And I've got 22 names of guys that I used to talk about lightweight trusses. And I got 40 names for bowstring trusses going back to the 30s. So I get out of the truss. It's not worth it. The structure is, unless it's occupied. And if it's a lightweight, new modern building, get the people out. Going to fight this from the out. If the fire's in the content, stand at operating procedure. Get the line in, knock the fire down. But once it gets into this truss structures,
no way.
Wood is burning with the sheet metal fasteners falling off. And the thing that nobody talks about, because the collapse danger is so great, is that the fire spread in these new lightweight truss buildings in the Bronx now, in Queens, and Staten Island, all over. Fire spread is 100 times faster, because when you used to get fire in the ceiling, it would travel along the beams, the solid beams. The solid beams would act as barriers, like a fire compartment. Now, when the fire gets in the ceiling of a lightweight truss building, it goes parallel with the trusses and perpendicular to the web members. So you got the fire spread. You can't pull the ceiling down how you used to chase the fire with pulling down the ceiling and knock it down between the beams with a hose string. You pull the ceilings that way, it's going this way. So fire spread is 100 times faster, and we know how bad they are. So, Brendan, that's my feelings about trusses. Those guys are wrong. The modern experts, forget them.
Chief, did you want to tell them where you got the "don't trust the truss" come from?
Thank you for that. Don't trust the trust. Yeah. So that's what we say. And all I know is that one time I heard it's a trust. And let me tell you something. You want to know? I'll tell you the most important thing of this whole night lecture. You want to have trust safety. You want to know how you can save lives with a truss. A fire in a burning building that's truss construction is for for anybody who sees a truss to do what that guy did that night in Bathgate Avenue. Tell, hey, Chief, you know, we got a truss roof here. Boom, out of the building. That's the firefighter. You can't depend on the chief knowing that's a truss building. Firefighters and company officers are the eyes and ears of the chief. So the best thing you do, safety of firemen, is either transmit that information up. Any chief worked at SALT, is SALT or her SALT, is not going to let you fight a defensive long-term fire in a truss building. That's all. With our record, I don't want that to happen. So that's how you notify the chief. Make sure you tell, because the chief don't know it's truss, and he may not know it's truss. You know, you're in there with a bad piece of construction. Okay. Second question from Brendan Dunn, Utica, New York. How do I feel about the modern experts who say today there are too many scare tactics being used? Now I'm doing this tonight. I can be number one.
Yeah, right.
Tactician. So
I ain't going near that building.
You're talking about me.
Great line.
Hopefully I got you guys a little scared tonight too. But
Mildly concerned. How about
Yes,
that?
let's put it that way.
So Brendan wants to know, how about these modern experts who say there are too many scare tactics used to create fear in firefighters? Now, let me tell you something. We are risk takers. You and I and all of us here. Firefighters are risk takers. Anybody in the fire department has got to be a risk taker. We want that risk. Risk taking is an important part of life saving. You will not save lives if you don't risk your life. That's, when you see a person seen, heard, or reported by a credible witness, we have to risk our lives as much as we can, So your young men and young firefighters want to risk and do so every day. We are risk takers, there's no question about it. We don't want to make anybody risk averse. Like when that chief says to me, "What, are you trying to scare these guys?" No, I just want to let them know what's out there. I want to let them know about the trust. So we don't want them to be risk averse. That's not my goal, but I want them to be risk aware. Now,
Risk reward, right, Chief?
what? Risk
Risk
reward.
reward.
Now, if a firefighter gets killed and he knows the risk that he's taking, well, that's our job. There's nothing we can do. That's an acceptable life loss. But if a young firefighter gets killed, taking a risk, and he don't know what the risks reward are, that's awful. That's an unacceptable. So we got to get the risk awareness out there. So when they make the life and death decision, fine. But be aware of the risk. That's all. That's my purpose, not to scare firefighters, make them aware. So when they take that risk, the life or death, which we do every day, we got to be the nature of we're aware of the risk. And my conscience is clear. In that safety and survival book, I wrote everything I could think about danger in the book. And I said, this is my final shout out to the firemen. My conscience is clear. If I left the job with all these hazards in my, and I said, I didn't tell them about that. I told, guys would say, look at that chief, he left with all that information. They'll never say that about me. Everything I knew.
Left it on the table.
It's in the book. Read the book, kids. So
Hey,
anyway,
Coops, I'm scared. Are you scared?
I'm mildly concerned.
So again, I want to make it clear. We are risk takers. We want risk. We want
Listen,
risk in the
when you
fire.
raise your hand and take the oath, you know what you're getting into.
That's right. And that's it. And we're trained to be risk takers.
Yeah, risk a lot to save a lot.
So if you die and you don't know the risk you took, that's our fault.
Yeah.
But if you die and you know the risk you took, that's heroism. That's true heroism. Okay, John Albanese.
Johnny.
Oh, Big
John
John.
Albanese. He said, what was a proud moment in your career? I mean, there was so many. I mean, I listed them. Putting out my first fire. I mean, it was a thrill. I was on 108th Avenue, 139th Street with fire. I went down those two rooms. I actually had so much energy. I went up the rear fire escape looking for more fire. Chief said, "No, come down. But that was my first fire, and so I had the nozzle there. So that was a proud thing. We rescue one night. I mean, I get married. I'm a young man in the fire department, and I went to a vocational school. I wanted to be a electrician, a carpenter, plumber. That's what the courses I took in vocational school. And so I'm married. I live in an apartment house, and my electrical wiring goes, man, I got to call this guy from the management comes up to fix my wire. And I'm saying, I should be able to do this. I'm 20 years old. And I just got on the fire department. And I'm saying, what the hell? What is my job? I didn't know what my job was. So I hated calling these guys, these managers, plumbers, and you had to call them because in the apartment they required you to. So one night, my wife is out, and I'm laying in bed there, and I hear this scream about 9 o'clock, screaming, help, help, help. So I jump up. At that time, I had a stupid polyester bathrobe on. I go out my hallway. The
Regular Hugh Hefner.
street is heavy smoke is coming out, and the doors open, and here's the plumber and the electrician and the manager, terrified. They're frozen. So the woman screamed, "My daughter's in my." What's her name? What's her name? So she's Mary. So I said, "Where are you?" Back. So I go in. There's a couch burning. Fire is going across the ceiling. Shoot under there. I kick open this door, and this little girl in the dark jumps into my arms. She's about 5 years old.
Oh my God!
I didn't look. I have to search for her. She in the dark. She jumps into my arms. So I bring her out to the hallway to her mother. I said, "You call 911, shut the door," and then I wait till the fire first unit got there. I said, "It's in. You go in. You make a left turn. It's a couch burning." So, but that was a proud moment.
Oh my God! That's freaking awesome.
I didn't tell the chief. I didn't like. I said I took that one myself, but that I got that in my memory, and that was.
You still got the robe?
It burned off and he left that out.
It would have flashed up on me like.
Man, he's got a frame behind him. You see it back there?
Another proud moment is I remember I became a lieutenant. So I must be. I get a lieutenant's badge.
Great story.
And one day, for some reason, I'm in Jan's ice cream parlor alone, sitting on the table, the lunch table, eating ice cream. And, I just got promoted lieutenant. And I'm sitting at this ice cream parlor table, counter, and I'm saying, nobody in this restaurant knows that I have a fire lieutenant's badge in my back pocket here. I'm saying, nobody here knows that I'm a fire lieutenant in the New York City Fire Department. So it had to be a proud.
I love it.
So, and then being a deputy,
He didn't give us any of those stories in the
He
last.
was saving them for this episode, bro.
Yeah, so
That's a great story,
I
man.
like being promoted deputy. I got a picture. I got a picture taken. The job took it. And I got my wife and my sister, my father, my daughter, my son. And you can see I'm happy. And that picture is like the culmination of a long-term goal. It was 1977. So it's 20 years. I was in the job 20 years when I made deputy. So that was a proud moment. So I had plenty of proud moments. So what is a regrettable moment? Now, John Albanese says, what are the moments you regret? I mean, there's a couple of children dying at fires. I cannot think of them. Guy was writing a book, and this little baby was burning on a mattress. I had to tell him, get this off the book. I cannot talk about this. So that's the worst. Children dying at fire. Adults, old people, you can do that, but children dying at fire, that's the most regrettable moment. I had a hostage scene on 21st Street. The crazy guy takes hostages down a basement. And the cops are there with guns, long guns, and shields and helmets. I got firemen in the building. And then I said, wait a minute, this is not going to work. If the guy comes out shooting, the cops shoot back, I'm going to have firemen dead. So I pulled everybody out. I said, everybody get out of the building. It's a terrorist. It's a pretty famous thing. So anyway, I pulled everybody out. We find out later the guy had 7 hostages. They died from smoke inhalation. So now I had to type the ages, they were in their 20s, and their names, and that was a bad moment in my life. I made that decision. I probably would have made it again. There's one of the life or death principles is you save our own, we save our own, and that's what I did that day. I saved the firefighters. And unfortunately, those poor people died. So that was a regrettable fire. So, all right. So the hostage scene and. Regret was not. So So that was it. I had more proud moments than regrettable moments. Okay, Rob Procaccino.
Oh, who? What? We never heard of this guy.
Rob says, each rank, he wants me to detail, each rank, what left the biggest impression? Now, as a fireman, surviving in that crazy 3-story firehouse with a spiral staircase, with heavy drinking firemen, Bronx firemen, fighting down a kitchen every night, 12 o'clock after they do committee work, running out, get them 6-pack of beers, started flowing at 12 noon. And then at morning you come in, they have the beers piled up on the kitchen table. Today it's not like that. Today we got, thank God there's no more drinking. You got but it was heavy. You say, how am I going to survive in this environment? So you had to format your career. You're focusing. What do I want to do? What do I want to be? And then I got this fireman who knew about the GI Bill and got me to go to school. And
the Italian guy, right?
Yeah, he was the Iceman's son, Frank Lemusky.
The Iceman's son.
His father was an Iceman, So I mean, but this guy was the most ambitious guy. A lot of guys didn't like his ambition, but it was just what I needed. He said, Vin, come on, let's go. GI Bill, Queens College. Vin, let's study for lieutenant. And which was like the guys in the kitchen. Who the hell are these guys? They're not even firemen, and they're trying to be bosses. So, but he got me to go. So I definitely credit him. And but the first, each rank, what left the biggest impact? That set my whatever that
trajectory.
Thank you. That was a tough word. Trajectory. And then lieutenant, 33 engine. I learned to be a supervisor. I never supervised people before, and then. Like the first day I get into 33, we didn't have roll calls up in Harlem. So I get my first day in 33 as a lieutenant. It's down Lower Manhattan, Great Jones Street. So I'm up there 9 o'clock. And the guy, hey, Chief, hey, Lieutenant, come on down. It's a roll call. They're calling me down for the roll call. So then I had to go down for the roll call. And they introduced themselves. I didn't want to get assigned to that house, believe it or not. Because I had a run-in with a guy a couple of months before. I said, this is the one house I don't want to go to. Sure enough, I get assigned there. But so when I went down there, the guys in my division, they shook my hand. They were the most pleasant firemen I ever got to meet. So I was totally wrong, and I loved working down there. So that was, I learned to be a supervisor. You don't give orders. And I learned to be a supervisor by setting up a study class like I did as a fireman, and help them get promoted to lieutenant. I got about 3 guys promoted. So that gave me more credibility as a supervisor by telling them, come on, guys, we're coming in every Wednesday. I'll show you how to get promoted. Okay. But let me tell you something. There's nothing like the captain's rank. That was the most challenging, most difficult. It just rips your guts out. I mean, you find out who you are when you're a captain of a busy engine company or a ladder company. The guys demand you, and you not only have the guys that are looking at you, you got the officers in the office. You can't, them officers are watching you every day. So the officers are checking you out. You're the captain of 3 lieutenants are checking, and the fireman. And that is, and what I used to say is, well, as a captain, you're in the middle of the hourglass as a captain. Captains are there. The chiefs let everything roll down, and everything's got to go through that captain's rank. It's the toughest rank in the fire service. And guys, it's the best rank. Guys want to be there. But for me, it was different. It was a tough rank. I did good. It brought a lot of things good out of me. And so I would say most challenging, and it keeps you, it makes you a boss. I learned how to be a supervisor in 33. But you learn how to be a boss and as a captain. And then battalion chief, you commanded the multiple, you learn a little more coordination. You had to coordinate units, battalion chief. You were an aggressive, from being a fire officer, that I fit right in as an aggressive battalion, 2-5 battalion chief. I knew how to do an aggressive attack. However, I had 3 engines and 2 trucks, and I had a squad sometimes or a rescue. So I had to learn about what truck officers did. I had to learn about what squad, how to use a squad. I had to learn about rescue companies. So I had to learn much more when I became a chief. And then coordination became a big thing, and the communication. I mean, if you're not, you can, and the synonym for battalion chief is communication. You got to learn how to do that. You can't be blobbering all the time, but you got to know how to communicate on the phone. You got to be a communicator. And then, so you got, everything is yours. You transmit the alarms. You tell them when it's under control. So these are life and death decisions, because if you declare under control, you come back 2 hours later and people are dead, you made a bad life or death decision. But you declare that fire under control, and you got to do your search. You got to get the secondary search report, and sometimes it doesn't come. You got to say, Battalion 2-5, 2-6, give me the secondary search. Fire floor above, 4-3 on the floor above, whatever it is. One time there was a fire, and if you wanted to get bounced from your unit, leave the scene with a dead body in there and let the headquarters find out about it. You're bounced. One day there was a chief in Queens. I don't know where he was, but the point was there was a victim found later on, and they had the investigation. Nobody asked for a secondary search. Nobody gave a secondary search, and they left the scene, and there was a body there. I mean, maybe it was a small fire, but that chief got bounced. So you got to do those secondary searches, fire floor above, and so that's what the battalion chief does. And you learn strategy. But the deputy was my favorite rank. Yeah, it was the easiest rank. I started writing and lecturing, and then I thought about what I did. All at 20 years, I'd go to fires and go, oh, Jesus, and then go home, cut the grass, paint the house, take the kids to school. And then as a deputy, I said, wait a minute, something's going on here. I was up in the Bronx, it was getting worse at 77. There's something going on here. What's going on? And I got 12 books, 11 books, whatever it is. Tom Stretz, he asked me, what's your favorite place to work? My favorite place to work, well, I have to say, was Division 3. I had done 20 years in Harlem. I did Harlem, Lower East Side, and the Bronx. 20 years. Then I went to high rise. Now, going down to the 3rd Division, I used to say it's like going to the moon. There was nothing you could relate. I mean, we had tenements. We had tenements there. We had high rise residential. But these high rise commercial office buildings were horrendous. So that was, and seeing the buildings and doing and everything, all that firefighting procedure, high rise procedures, operations chief, search and rescue chief, logistics chief, learning all that stuff was new. I had to learn it all over. Okay, so who was the one person you looked up to and influenced you? And I actually have to say, there were a lot of them. There was my driver. I looked up to my driver, Walter Fornes, who was a World War II veteran. I worked with him for about 18 years, or 20 years. He was my engine chauffeur, my battalion chief chauffeur, my Division 7 chauffeur, my Division 3 chauffeur. One night, he had a party, and I wanted to go, and I told my wife, I want to go to Walter. She said, I got a party too. So I says, look at Pat, I've been working with Walter for 20 years. Don't test me. I said, no, I went to the party that night with my driver. So, but there was a guy, he said, who did I look up to? So I looked up to him. The other guys, I can't, Lou Harris, Gus Beekman, Bill Grimes, Tom Kennedy, and my driver, Walter Fun. Who had the greatest influence on you? Now, it was like the Frank Lamusco, the Iceman's son. He had the greatest influence on me. I didn't know that for about 10 or 20 years. Then one night I'm thinking about my life. I said, Jesus, Frank had a lot to do. Lou Harris, there was a guy, you probably don't even remember him. He was chief of operations, but I knew him as a captain. I took my first building construction course with him out in Queens College. And this guy, Lou Harris, his son was in the job. His son was not, it was very different from the old man. But Lou Harris, I would go to Fire Tech, Fire Delahanty. He would give a lecture about stretching hose lines. And then he would go off on a tangent about drafting water. And he would give you a whole 10 sessions on drafting water. The amount of knowledge that the man had, about fire protection. He had me in the class. He had us drawing piers and pumps, and he had us drawing a workbook. The guy was a wealth of knowledge. And funny, about 2 months ago, I realized that is what I have become. The guy with a wealth of knowledge with all the stuff that I'm talking about. I now know why this guy had such an impact on me. I never worked with the guy. I knew he was a fireman in 30 truck, officer and lieutenant in 2 truck. I knew his record. I followed him. Captain in 25 truck, battalion chief in 8th battalion, deputy in the 1st, headquarters operations chief. He was a Navy CB. He was in during World War II. Got a degree in City University with the GI Bill. His father was in 59 inch. His father was lieutenant in 59 inch. He was a fireman in 30 truck. And, the guy was not a typical New York City firefighter. I said, how could I have been so enamored with this guy? He had a speech impediment. He was not a good looking man. And actually he was not a typical Italian or Irish firefighter. He was Jewish fire officer, but he had something that I wanted. And I remember one time I was in a room and I just felt so uncomfortable. And I never told the guy. I never told this guy how I felt about him. And one day his son calls me on the phone. He says, Lieutenant Harris. I said, you know Harris's son? Well, I went on ranting about how great his old man was, and I told him all the things I never told the father, but that was, I would have to say he was the single biggest influence on my life. Other guy, Dennis Smith was another influence. Frank Lemuskio was an influence. Dennis Smith got me writing in Firehouse magazine, and then the articles I got in Firehouse became my books. So there were a lot of, you're never by yourself. You're always being helped by somebody else. So Tom, there's my influences. And the other thing is, I didn't have too many idols. I never thought I couldn't do the job better than my supervisor. I'm saying I can do my job better than that guy, so that kept me motivated to get promoted. I had maybe 1 or 2 guys I knew I couldn't be like Lou Harris, but I always felt, very rarely did I get enamored by anybody else. I said I could do the job better than him, and I tried. So Tom, they were great questions. I think, how are we doing here?
Keep going.
Now, this is a great question. Jim Sullivan, whoever the heck Jim Sullivan is.
Jim Sullivan.
Question. He sent me a question.
Jimmy.
Now, listen to this one. What would I have done during the war years differently? Leaving politics out of it. What would I have done, when the fire load and the arson and the false alarms and the vacant buildings were, and what would I have done? So, and they were closing companies. And so was it evident? It was evident the city was going bankrupt in the 70s. The newspapers kept saying we're bankrupt. Mayor Lindsay had spent all the money running for president. There was nothing. Then we had a mayor, a bureaucrat, who was the mayor now, money from the comptroller's office. And all we kept talking about was bankruptcy. The city was going bankrupt. Now the city was burning, and what would I have done differently? So, okay, let's go. With the arson, after a while, they got the red caps. You remember the red caps? I was in a job 20 years. I would call arson fires in. I stopped calling them in. When I'd leave the scene, they never came. 2 hours. All of a sudden, this redheaded fire marshal comes in with these red caps and a gun, and now they responded. And when I was in the Bronx, all of a sudden, every night I have a fire. The guy would come up with a guy with handcuffs. We got the guy, chief. I said, what's going on here? I was here 20 years. I never saw an arrest of a marshal. He says, when we respond here, the people are so angry. And when we get here early, that they point the guy out. Now, when we get here 2 hours later, the people go back into their apartments. So those red caps, the community groups were fighting over these red caps. They wanted them so badly. And they used to keep records. False alarms would go down when the red caps. Arson fires would go down. And, I went to a Chiefs conference one time. I kept praising these red caps. And one of the chiefs said, nah, it's the mob. It's the mafia. They told them, stop the fire. It's not the red cap. They wouldn't give these guys credit. I'm saying it's the red caps. That having the marshals respond to the scene at the fire when the people are angry, that was a great thing. All right, what would I have done for the false alarms that were record? Jim Sullivan wants to know, what would I have done with the false alarm problem? I was driving us crazy. Well, first of all, when we got the ERS boxes in, the function of the box used to be, if they don't speak, you don't respond. That's the reason we got a call box instead of a pull box. You never. So now most of these kids would hit the false alarm and not say it or laugh. So now the dispatcher was going to be able to cut down on our false alarm response. But anyway, when it got to headquarters, they said, no, we're going to respond whether they talk or not. Well, that just ruined the purpose of the alarm boxes. I would have kept the original purpose. That's what I would have done. Vacant buildings. The reason we had vacant buildings, and that was the firestorm of the city, is because the people were fleeing crime, drugs, riots. It was scaring people, and they left vacant buildings. And then only until when Rudy got here did the sense of control come back, and the vacant buildings. And, of course, federal government pumped in big bucks, and they renovated all these things. So closing companies. Now, let me tell you, what would I have done about closing all those companies? Jim, I knew about O'Hagan, and there were a group of chiefs, O'Hagan, Harris, Gus Beekman, Lester Snyder. I would study them. They all went up the ranks together. They would all write the top 10 marks. They were like the whiz kids in Ford. And they were World War II veterans, and they all rose up to headquarters at the same time. And they wanted to manage the fire service. They wanted to they were not just gold chiefs with gold uniform. They said, we're going to manage this job. We're not going to be politicians, police. We're going to they started managing. They called Rand in. They started managing, cutting, and Rand went, I'll show you how to cut. So they started cutting them. Now, what I would have done was what every other fire commissioner did, and what they do in Congress: kick the can down the road. The city was going down the tubes. Firemen, they were running 10,000 runs. It was getting dangerous. But this guy tried to manage that, called in Rand. And now when Rand cut, and he recommended to the mayor, cut these extra second section companies. Then when stuff hit the fan and we went bankrupt, they said 8%, 10% across the board cuts everybody. He got no credit for the Rand management. So he was cut to the bone. So I would not have called Rand in. I would have let, like those congressmen are going to do with our Social Security and health plan. Kick it down the road. Let the guy who addresses Social Security and health, he's going to get vilified.
Oh, he's going to be screwed.
O'Hagan tried to do that. So I saw what happened. I mean, I hate to say it. He had more principles than I did, but I would have been like all those other commissioners. Kick the can down the road and say, I can't do it. I would have worked with the unions. He fought the unions, and you don't win fighting unions in New York City. So I would have worked with the unions. I would have tried to work with him. The game of in the city of New York was the union would go to the commission, ask for something undoable. Commission would say no. Then the unions would go to the city council. City council would say yes. Because they're politicians. They kicked the can down the road. Then the commissioner had to do what city council said. Now, what O'Hagan did, he was in there so long, he went to the head of the city council. He said, I don't want any of your councilmen talk to any fire union personnel. So now the fire union couldn't go over O'Hagan's head, had to go through O'Hagan. And that's when the stuff hit the fan. They clashed. He never knew how to work with the unions, and he wouldn't kick the can down the road like every other politician did. and he paid for it. I mean, he went out as a hated guy. But so Jim, that's what I have done. I would have kicked the can down the road. I would have not called Rand in. I would have used the ERS boxes the way I love and the red caps and the computers. The computers help identify these building owners in the different boroughs that were burning their apartments down. Before the computer, they didn't have a good grip on whose buildings were burning. When the computer came in, the marshals could say, oh, Mr. So-and-so's buildings in the Bronx are burning, in Brooklyn are burning, in Lower Manhattan are burning. We'll have to investigate, Mr. The computer helped the arson problem. Okay, but that was it. They tried to mention it. Oh, we're going to go. I got one from Jerry Hunt here. Jerry, now, I don't, this guy is from Flint, Michigan. Now, he must, they have that big water problem out in Flint, Michigan, rusty. Now, he's in dirty water. And I don't know too much about water, but he says, what improvements could be had in water flow delivery and standpipe systems? Well, I would say water flow delivery, we have pumpers, high rise pumpers. We have hose that does 600 PSI. So, I would recommend he has these big pumpers. The other problem I always felt, how come I have a hose that can withstand 600 PSI in a high-rise standpipe system, and they only test the Siamese system, Siamese fittings every 5 years for 300 pounds.
300? Yeah.
Static. How come that there's something wrong with those systems there? So I would investigate that. And, we didn't know if we can get, I remember one time, Frank Nastro had a hose line, 2.5 hose line on a 40-story building roof, and we pumped water. He wanted to know if he could get a hose line flowing on the roof, 2.5-inch hose line. And he did. That
rig was bouncing.
Banging, 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 bang. And he stopped it. We wanted to go to 600. He stopped it at 400. He said, no. We thought we were going to blow the standpipe Siamese off the wall. So anyway, I don't know. Vandalism, big problem was vandalism. Outlet valves are missing. And so that was all I can tell him about water flow, and see if it works. See if you can withstand your Siamese can take them. And firefighter air replenishment system. I think that, I don't know about this system. I think it's having bottles up in the high-rise floors that firefighters can use to replenish their system, their mask when they're fighting a fire long term. But I would question having, that's nice. Royal Crown, that's nice. I'm going to have one of those after this. I would question having somebody in a high-rise building check on my air pressure and air volume in a mask. I wouldn't want my own. We have our high-rise air masks, and we have bottles, and we bring them up ourselves. So, Jerry, I don't know too much about your water problem. I know you got a lot of problems out there, but we're lucky. We got pretty good standpipe systems. Mike Harrington, a retired Backstep alum, he said. Mike Harrington, I think his name is. Best training for myself or the building construction course. What other training do you recommend? Okay, here's what I said. When a new firefighter comes into the fire, you got to learn the first thing about fire. You got to know about combustion, flashover, rollover, flame over. You got to know about how fire grows. You got to know about your enemy. That's what kills us, fire. The second thing a young firefighter has to earn, he's got to read a building construction book, Brannigan's book, Glenn Corbett's book, or my book. That's the battle. But that's where we do battle with fire in buildings. So we got to know all about building construction. Like Mike said, building construction course was his favorite, was my favorite too. So you got to know about fire, where we meet fire in the battle space. And the next thing is combat. You got to know how to put out a fire, where the hose lines go, where the ladders go. And so there are three things I would tell anybody to do. Okay. We got Eric Cohen. Let me see. You guys falling asleep here?
No.
What? Did you say something? I'm sorry.
Eric Cohen. He's a shooter from 120. I don't know. This guy sounds. He's what?
Shooter 120. Yeah.
He's Eric Cohen from a shooter from 120. He wants to know what single book is best for officers' test. Then a single book, if he's talking about my book, it would be Collapse of Burning Buildings because it's been out since '88. They constantly use it at, which I'm very proud of, at New York City and tests all over the country. So they've been using that everywhere. So that's what I would say. Your chances of getting a question are greater from there. The second one is safety and survival. They're starting to use that book, a lot. It's how a firefighter. I listed the 15 most dangerous tactics, and then I talked about all the dangers that occur in each one of these tactics. And then in the introduction, I said, this is my final shout out. My conscience is clear. That's it. It's in this book. So that was it. And now you got two more here. Kevin Burns. So this guy, Kevin, he's a very big student. I know he's big on Facebook. Kevin, I know Kevin well. He said, which 5 construction types are most hazardous and why? Of the class 1 to 5. Well, you can't say that. You can't say, if you want to know which is the most hazardous, the insurance company gave these buildings numbers. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Those numbers represent the amount of wood, combustible wood that's in the building. A fire-resistant type 1 building has the least amount of wood. Type 2, non-combustible, has a bad roof, oil roof. Type 3 is a wood interior. Type 4 has a big wood interior, timber, heavy timber. Type 5 has got wood on the inside, wood on the outside. So the insurance companies have told us, they rated them. That's how much you will pay insurance, more for 5 than you will for 1. So they told us, but that's only on the wood in the building. And you got to worry about the content. The wood in the building stays the same. But if you put woodworking shop in there versus a school, you got a big difference there. So it's a fire load, you analyze a building, you got to know the structure and the content. Okay. So now, but here's what I would tell Kevin. A better question would be, what's the collapse dangers from each of the 5 types? The collapse danger of high-rise type 1 buildings is floor collapse. They sag. They don't call them down. One went down in Quebec, but they sag. They got to be replaced. The floors collapse in those big, major high-rise office buildings. Type 2 building, the roof is asphalt. That's your fire problem. Type 3 is your collapse. We're talking about your parapet walls. They fall off those brick and joist building. Type 4, the timber truss, the floors go down and they push the walls out. And the type 5, the wood buildings, they go like a global collapse. They go down inward, outward. The whole thing comes down. The floor is pancake, the walls come out. So that's the information that Kevin must know. And then how does the fire spread in these 5 types? Type 1, auto exposure, high-rise office building, window to window, and HVAC system. The smoke goes through 5 or 10 floors through the HVAC ducts. Type 2, the roof burns off. GM building, 56 acres of asphalt roof burned off. Everything else stayed. Cinder blocks stayed the same. The roof is your problem. Fire spread for class 3 is brick and joists, concealed spaces. All these hollow honeycomb. That's where the fire spreads. And then type 4, heavy timber buildings like Knickerbocker Avenue. Kevin, your dad took that picture.
Yeah.
I got that. I showed it all the time. The radiated heat was burning the walls on the building across the street. That the fire spread problem in the heavy timber is radiated heat. And the fire spread problem with a wood building is it's the only building that has a combustible exterior. The inside burns just like the type 3, but the outside walls go. Fire spreads up the outside wood, so you got inside and outside fire. Okay, but a basic size of points in a building fire, watch the first line. As a battalion chief, you get to a fire, you size in a tenement, watch the first line. If everything's going smooth, pump operator got water, no problem. Sounds good on a handy talkie. You're going to be okay. Get water. And then again, if I'm worrying about collapse, I'm going to say, is this a vacant building? It's going to get less treatment. Is this a lightweight truss building? Less treatment. Is it going to be a renovated building? I don't know about that. And if it's a 100-year-old building, I'm going to be, that's a size up I have to consider. Tips for balloon frame construction. Balloon frame construction, the outer walls, the space goes between the cellar to the attic. So get a guy up to the attic as soon as you can. The attic. Now, you don't know. You got balloon construction, brace frame construction. But balloon construction is known for that space from the cellar to the attic. And so you got to check that attic because you may knock the fire down on the first floor and it's spreading up in the attic. So that's balloon construction. Attic.
My favorite fires.
You guys out.
Yeah, that and subcells.
Oh.
You
Sorry.
the fire gets to the attic, you lost it. You got to put your heavy stream. You can't get up there to the little ladder to get up the attic. Heavy fuel load, no venting. Cut the roof.
Especially those top windows.
The whole building is gone. So you got to keep the fire
Get on the
from
peak.
the attic. That's to keep the secret in those buildings. Criteria for pulling guys out: heavy fire, prior collapse, explosion, and page 265 of my collapse of burning building. Bulletproof. I got 50 of them there.
I love the
Which
shame
one
of the
book would I recommend? I have 3 books. Well, I'm going to recommend this book now, Kevin, right?
Yep. Yes, we are.
Life or Death Decisions.
Wait. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Life or death decisions, right?
Yeah. So, and I got one more. Now I got this chief from Leominster, Mass, and the deputy, Chief Rob Sidlow, and Deputy Chief Jonathan Campagna. They're from Leominster, Massachusetts. They want to know, are thermopane windows as important to a fire intensity as flow path and flow fire load? Yes, they are. I mean, these thermopane windows have given us tight building syndrome. Doors are sealed, windows are sealed, insulation is sealed. Fires are burning in this tight building syndrome fire. So I totally agree with the thermopane windows that contain the heat, smoke, and superheat until we open up, and then the OT violently explodes into flame. Watch out for the. Oh, he says to me, "Can we still look at the hose line jumping?" We're talking about coordinating window venting with the hose line. Now, years ago, the guy's on a fire escape of a tenement. The best coordination we could do is, he'd look down at the fire escape. He could see the smoke behind the window. If he saw it, the hose jumping in the street, then he'd start to take the windows. He thought there's something that's going. If he heard a hissing of the guy bleeding the nozzle in there sometimes in a hallway, that was coordination. Then he would take, but he wouldn't take the windows out until he got some indication. Now today, we got a radio. So we say, ladder 1 to engine 1. Let us know when you're ready to move that line and I'll take the windows out. So that's how we coordinate venting today. Much easier with the radio. But years ago, but he said, is it still good to watch the charge hose line? It's still good. If you don't have a radio, that's all you can do. And yes, radio traffic has increased. He's complaining about radio traffic, but coordinating venting is so important. It's got to be considered. So that's it, guys. You got any more questions?
I got one right here. Hold on 1 second.
I have a couple too.
This was a late comer. This came from Hank Mollet, Rescue 1. Here's a question for Chief Dunn. As the 3rd Division Commander, was there one type of structure when on fire that he thought was the toughest for the brothers to fight and for him to command?
Oh, no. First of all, Hank, he's a big influence. He's one of my influences. I love Hank.
Don't blow his ego up. Come on, stop.
I know, but I do. But Hank knows what the fire is. It's a high-rise office building. I mean, geez, they're 20,000 square foot of open floor space, and if it gets going, there's, it's plastic environment, and we're there for 4 hours, and it's what we call controlled burning. We don't put those big fires. We stay in the hallways, huddle in the hallway with a hose line until all the fuel burns out, and hopefully the building contains it. One night, the big chief said to me, "Vin, we couldn't move the line in." Battalion agent say, "Can't move the line in." So he said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "It's up to the building chief. We got all the guys positioned with the high-rise procedure in the right positions until the 8th Battalion changes that report." And he did. He said, "Oh, we got a side door to the place. We're not going to fire down." But he said to me, what are we going to do? I said, Chief, it's up to the building now. We did everything. We got all the men in position for the firefight, but now it's a structure. So Hank knows. Hank was at those, One New York Plaza fires and 299 Park Avenue fire, and even my Empire State Building fire. That was 4 hours of not going down a hallway. One Lincoln Plaza fire. That was a high-rise residential building. It took us a half an hour to get from the stairway to the apartment.
Wow.
And then when we got down there, the walls had burned down. It was nothing but ash. Lionel Hampton's piano was burned. There was nothing left of his apartment. But so Hank knows his high-rise infernos. He knows all things.
What'd you think of, you were in Manhattan for so long, what'd you think of subcellar fires?
Those are Lou's favorite, by the way.
Personally, all I know about subcellar fires is that we had the fire in the subcellar in the New York Times building in the 1960s, and two guys from 24 truck went up to the 20th floor, and they got overcome and they died by smoke from the fire 5 floors in the sub-basement. So that cooking smoke down there goes up through the building, and they were just searching on it 20 floors above, and they died from the CO in that smoke. So I was fortunate. I mean, subcellar fires, I tell you what, when I would get a subcellar fire, or I'd get a cellar fire, I said, get the foam unit, send the foam unit, and
kind of guy.
Get the foam unit here. And so I would get ready, but I know if you can maybe get down the cellar, but the subcellar you're not making. So I want to fill it up with that high-X foam up the whole neighborhood, the streets and everything.
Foam it all.
We're not using cellar pipe. We're not using cellar pipes. We're going to fill it up with high-X foam. So that was my strategy for subcellar pipe. Fans, he's like one night fans. How do you use fans, Chief, at a fire? And fans were a big thing. At smaller buildings, I did see them use. They just blow everything in one direction, and the hose line can come in and put out the fire behind it. But in a big, complex street of New York with buildings and cellars all over, it doesn't work like that. One night, we're up in 24th Street. Tom Kennedy is the battalion chief, 16th Battalion. I'm the deputy. So we got this fire in the basement. So Tom says, let's try some positive pressure ventilation. So we start to vent the cellar. He said, one day I saw we put the air down the open cellar door. It come up through the interior cellar and got out of the building. Maybe we can get the smoke out. So we knocked the fire down. We got most of the smoke out. I said, Tom, I'm going back to quarters. I go back to quarters. I said, dispatcher says, Division 3, respond back to 125th Street. We got smoke in the basement. You had a fire on 24th Street? Check out the building on 25th Street. Well, we check out I said, holy Jesus. Did we blow the fire into that building? So no, but we blew smoke into that building through the cellar. So positive pressure ventilation is good in certain cases, not in our city environment with back-to-back buildings. So when he got there, we went down the basement. Oh, it's okay, just a smoke condition. So I told the battalion, don't worry about it. I didn't tell him we blew it in from 124th Street, but we did. So
nice.
Basically.
Don, you got questions over there, bud?
I have a couple, yes. I have a few, rather. Here we go. I'm going to put it up on here. Gonzo, if time allows, did Deputy Chief Vincent Dunn ever call the super pumper to a fire?
No, but let me tell you something. I saw the super pumper operate at a loft building down in the Spice District, on the west side. And this assistant chief was in charge. And he had that big 5-inch gun throwing 8,000 gallons of water at this loft building. He collapsed 3-inch thick walls off the building. Big refrigeration systems were falling. He demolished this loft building. We stayed on the adjoining building with a hose line. We never started water. I got in trouble because I didn't start water. This big thing machine was knocking this building. It destroyed the building. The chief got complaints. because he didn't want us in this old 100-year-old loft building. So he's an old chief, and I'm going to demolish it. So I did see it work, and saved me a lot of heartache that day. I got in trouble because I didn't start water in my line. You know, they wanted to know, why didn't I start water? I said, we had all the water coming out of that super pumper. I didn't need it anymore up my hose line.
Your hose line wasn't going to do anything anyway.
But I know it was a good piece of equipment.
Excellent. All right. We got another one from Mr. Artie Workle again. He wants to know, in your opinion, who was the best chief of department during your career, obviously.
Okay, well, let's think about that. I mean, actually, probably I'd have to say, you'd have to go with, I would say, Gus Beekman.
I knew you were going to say that. I was going to call that out.
Yeah, Gus Beekman. No, and the other one was also, he wasn't chief of department. He was chief of operations. It was Crothers, the father. Crothers was the chief of operations. Beekman and Crothers were two great, and also John O'Rourke. You got to put John O'Rourke down there. Mm-hmm. Tony Fusco. I mean, they were great chief of departments. So I would put them down. Fusco, John O'Rourke, Gus Beekman, and Crothers. He was like the chief of operations. I mean, Hagen was.
I think we're getting Fusco on the show coming
what?
up. I think we're getting Fusco on the show. He's coming
Getting
up.
what? Kevin?
Fusco. I think we're getting Fusco to come on the show.
Oh well, yeah, he was great. He was a great chief of department. Things were good, and he was. I would put him right up there. And,
nice. All right, and the last one is Hank was asking you a question. We'll go back to the trust question. He wants to know about if he feels the same, or if you feel the same about open web bar joist truss that you do about versus lightweight wood truss.
Let me tell you about open web bar joist. I read the Handbook of Fire Protection in 1950, the 10th edition. They're up there about the 20th, so 50 years ago. I'm reading this big, thick reference book, and it says unprotected lightweight bar joist. The engineers are talking like unprotected steel bar joist fails within 5 to 10 minutes of fire exposure. Back in the 50s, I almost had a heart attack when I read that. Wait a minute. They've been putting that in them handbooks every year. I got the section, and I send it out. I have a little in my folder. I send it out to these guys. And so I think there was a guy from 120. He died, a roof collapsed, and he died in a roof in the 60s. I don't know. That could have been lightweight truss. But I see it, and I tell the guys, they're going to nail your ass. The lawyer is going to take that section out, which I always publish, and they're going to nail your ass in court. Why did you lose your firemen in that building when the NFPA has been saying that they fail within 5 to 10 minutes? I've never seen one fail. I've seen them bow, but I was fortunate. And that night when I was told it's a truss, it was a lightweight bar joist, and I would do it again. Get off the roof, get out of the building. All I know is there's no excuse to die in a building from a collapse going down or above you if it's lightweight bar joist, because they've been telling us for 50 years. Open, like most of the firehouses have open bar joists. They fail within 5 to 10 minutes of fire exposure. So Hank, that's what I would say. I never saw one, but that section, I have it in my little folder, and every time a guy asks me about 5 to 10 minutes, buddy, 5 to 10 minutes. They're gonna nail you.
5 more minutes, Chief. 5 more minutes.
And that's what the lightweight truss is. And we've had tests, and everybody's aware of the test with the wooden lightweight truss with the sheet metal surface fence and no ridge rafter. But the guys forgot about this open bar joist, and the engineers are warning us for 50 years. Fails within 5 to 10 minutes. So be my guess. I would get you out of there. I'm not going to, if it's a content fire and we can knock it down with one line, okay. But I'm not doing a long term. I wouldn't have guys on a roof with a lightweight bar joist truss roof.
Nice. That's all I have. I mean, we got one last one here. You have a favorite dispatcher?
Well, I have two. I have three. Dan Buckley from Manhattan and Herbie Eisner from Manhattan. They were, and of course, Mr. Dispatcher 120, Warren Fuchs. You know,
I was going to say the beef.
Dan
but,
Buckley, Herbie Eisner, they were the best. You know.
All right.
Excellent. Chief, you're
Great job.
amazing. You're amazing. You're sharp as you were 50 years ago, I got to say.
God's been good to me. I don't know.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but you can remember all that shit.
Yeah.
Before we go, let's talk about your book really quick.
Okay.
It's Life or Death Decisions. You were talking about how you came up with it, right? It's a guy from FBI was telling you about acceptable loss.
Okay, so let me just bear with me. I really want to say that, like we were talking about these life or death decisions. Again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I want everybody to be risk aware. When we die, I want us to be aware of the risk we're taking. So let me just see. And we were talking about life or death decision making. These are the principles. Oh, who lives and who dies? Who lives and who dies? Okay. Now, philosophers and theologians and medical people have these certain principles that they say they know about how they make decisions of acceptable and unacceptable life. Now, Kevin and I were talking about triage. Triage is we're saying those guys in 1, they're not going to make it. So, guys in 2, we don't need to help them. Guys in 3, we're going to help them. That's a life or death decision. When you do we've been doing triage. We've been doing life and death decisions and following these principles, but we haven't documented these. Okay, first principle of a life or death decision is based on scarce resources. And scarce resources is triage. We can't do everybody, so we can only do a few. Put them guys in a dead pile, save a little pile, and don't need help. That's a first principle. Scarce resources make us do triage. The second, save the most threatened as a tactic. Save the most threatened. In the bulletin, if you got raising a ladder, you're at a window, 3 people are at one window, heavy smoke, 1 person at the other window, heavy smoke. Who do you put the ladder to? Where the 2 people are the most threatened. That's a life or death decision. We've been made that. I'm sure we made that in the fire service, but we didn't see it as it is. Okay. Principle 3: save those in actual danger before potential danger. Now there's a question. There's a woman sitting on the edge of a window, and now we know there might be people in the building, potential greater loss. But you got to save that person at the window. That's an actual loss. If, for example, the lawyer said, well, Chief, you wasted time saving her. 2 people died in there. That's an actual loss. That was potential. I didn't know they were in there. If you went in there and saved the 2 and she jumped, they said, Chief, why did you leave her out the window? So you got to do actual loss versus, and the theologians, priests and bishops have been talking about this. And philosophers do this. What do we got here now? 4, firefighter considered the greater good when searching. First search, from the fire. The greater good, we search the fire area and the floor above. We start in the fire room and we work out. When do we do? We know the greater good is to search the fire floor and the floor above, because that's where we find most of the victims. We may find an occasional strange position, but we do the greater good by going to those 2 areas there. And principle number 5, where are we here now? Life or death decision, saving the closest victim first. When we go to a collapse search and rescue, the procedure is you do your reconnaissance, you run up on a pile, you take those partly buried and surface victims first. The ones that are closest to it. And then after we get all the surface victims, we got 70% of the people that we're going to survive. Then we start to dig for the distant ones. So we save closest first. That's our rescue, a collapse rescue operating procedure. We are doing that life or death decision of saving closest victim first in a rescue pile. Next, principle of saving our own. We've had rapid intervention teams. The RIT team. That's for us. We're saving our own. That day at the 125th Street when I pulled those guys out and 7 people died, I did saving our own over, unfortunately, those poor people. So I still think about that. And that's why one of the reasons I wrote this book here. I'm still going over all this crap. 7 principles of limiting losses.
Don't give them all. Don't give them all the stuff.
They won't be buying the book.
What?
Don't give away all your
goodies.
secrets.
No,
You can make them buy the book.
One more. Limiting losses. When you go to a hazmat incident, first thing we do is, hey guys, hold up, cordon off the area. We want to limit our losses. We don't want our guys to be contaminated. So there are 7 principles, and we really do them, but we haven't identified them yet. Let me tell you something. Nobody talked about collapse until I wrote that book. I'm sure there were some old timers said, what is this guy trying to scare these guys? Talking about how buildings collapse? No, I couldn't believe after 100 years, nobody wrote about building collapse and the fires. Now, the same thing, this is the first time you will hear the words life or death decision making. I am introducing that term. Now, it'll be used in the future. But right now, that's a scary term. Firefighters don't like that term. And again, but the philosophers and theologians and medical doctors have been debating it. They knew they were going to lock the door during the pandemic. They were using, they told the ambulance guys, don't bring us anybody you don't think is going to survive. They left people with COVID that died there. So we're always doing life or death decision. That's all. And this guy from the FBI, he wrote a thesis on it. But I heard those words and I said, you know what? We've been doing that for 100 years. I want to identify what we do. That's all. I'm not trying to scare anybody.
And we broke it here first, Ruffy. Another breaking story.
That's how we do it.
You got it. The first time that anybody's ever talking about life or death decision, it's on your show.
It's on your show. Very nice. So when you coming back on?
Great show, Chief. Guys, put away. Where can we get that book again, really quick?
He has it available on Amazon. If you go to his
VincentDunn.com, all my books are on VincentDunn.com. But also you can get this book on Amazon too.
It's on Amazon. I posted that in the chat. And if you want, we can do the FRC ad or not. We do it on Monday.
No, we can do it now. We don't have a show on Monday.
I'm not selling books. I love tonight. I love talking to you guys. I want to talk about. I think about these things all the time. I get very few opportunities to.
We'll have you again. Don't worry.
I'm not selling. Believe me.
They love listening to you. The chat's going crazy. But I'm going to play an ad really quick if you guys are ready.
Yes, do it.
And we'll get right back to you, Chief. Stand by.
The First Responders Center for Excellence is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to protecting the lives and livelihoods of first responders. Their education and research initiatives aim to bring greater awareness and understanding to the challenges to the health, safety, and well-being of firefighters, EMS personnel, and other first responders, too. They are an affiliate of the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation.
And the old school health and safety tip. I'm going to give you 2 tonight. How do you like them apples? Be aggressive on the scene fighting the fire and be just as aggressive in cleaning your gear, equipment, and yourself after the fire. We must protect our greatest resource, the firefighter. And one more. Diesel is a known carcinogen. Use the exhaust system capture in your firehouse to reduce exposure to the diesel exhaust. We have the Needleman, whatever you have in your firehouse. Don't be lazy. Put it over the exhaust. Right, Ruff? You used to be able to write your name in the diesel fumes, the diesel dirt on the walls.
Yeah, you're right.
Don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So we don't have a show on Monday. Ruffy's not around, and I have to take a safety class, so there is no show on Monday. We are back on Thursday.
Safety class for what? Something to do with the show? I mean,
the Pistola.
The old Pistola. You got to take a safety class.
Oh, that's safety class. Oh, yeah. See, I wasn't hip. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, anybody get a shout out? I have one shout out. Mike Chavala's son, Logan Chavala, just got on the job in Prince County, Maryland. His first tour is on Tuesday. And if anybody knows Mike did a lot with the 9/11 families for 20 years, man. And his class There's somebody who never forgot. You say the word never forget 9/11. There's a guy, Mike, who never forgets. Anyway, his son Logan just got on the job, Prince County, Maryland. First Taurus Tuesday. Welcome to the job, brother. You should be watching this man, this legend, this guy on this show tonight. We thank you.
Were you writing any cheap stuff down there, Guns?
I was trying mentally, right?
You are.
I was putting some stuff down.
Chief, great show. I listen. We're gonna have you on again. I like the open forum. I like the question and answer forum.
Me too. Just give me those questions, and we'll keep answering them.
Yeah, for sure. That was a great format. The comments were flying.
Good questions.
And guys in the chat loved it. Some guys were saying, I don't know. Somebody said second best show. I wonder what he thinks the first best show is. I don't know. But anyway, that's what we got. Who do we have Thursday, Ruff? Do we have somebody?
I don't have my computer here, kid.
Oh, I can look for you.
Oh, Guns, let me know who we got.
Let me see.
My phone just turned off on what do you call it?
Ooh, really quick. So you told next Thursday is Mr. Ray Lockett. Is it Baltimore City?
Oh,
FD?
Zip it, lock it, put it in your pocket. That guy.
That's okay. So that's who you have on Thursday.
All right, Chief. Again, don't go anywhere. We'll see you in the after show. Thanks, guys. Ruffy, thanks for joining in. Great internet out there.
Good questions. Thank the guys for questions. Great questions.
Yeah,
Thank you again, Chief.
Great questions. All right.
It's an honor.
So we'll see you next Thursday. Until then, pull up your boots. It looks like work, baby.
Oh.
Woo! Hit you with a new one tonight.
Yeah.
See you at the big one, everybody.
You copying my ass. All right, we'll see you on the top floor, everybody. Good night.